Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the most electrifying sports podcast in the 716.
That's right.
You are now tuned in to Buffalo Sports Insider. I am your host, Justin Cjack. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a wonderful cast of people with me today. KJ Zelzinski, Thomas Bailey, Colton Pankowitz. We'll have more guests joining us later. We've got a lot to talk about today. As you may already know, it's Bills game day. Monday night football against the Denver Broncos. But before we get to that, let me plug all of our socials. We've got TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, tune into our website. We've got a lot going on there, daily articles at this point, and we've got good stuff pumping out. So make sure you're tuned into that. Before we get to any Bills talk, though, we have a few games for the Buffalo Sabres to cover, folks. Sabres now sitting at 7-1. They go 1-1 over the weekend. They first take on the Minnesota Wild. They take a W at home, 3-2. Tommy, what can you tell us about this game?
Devin Levi had a night. Let me tell you.
Devin Levi legacy game.
33 saves on 35 shots. Both goals were given up on the penalty kill by our Sabres. They played really well for the entirety of that game outside of the penalty kill unit and the power play unit. The special teams were not there in that one.
Right.
But the team got to work. They grinded out a victory against a very, very good offensive team. Held them to just 2 goals, and most of that was due to Devin Levi.
Yeah,
and
that's
we walk
big time.
away with a big win at home.
Right. He
For
stops.
once we won at home.
He stops 33 of 35 shots, and I mean that's impressive. I don't care who you are. 3-2, close game. Peterka and Skinner, probably a few of the big winners of this game. They both have multi-point nights. Peterka puts up his 6th goal of the year at that point, and Skinner 7 respectively as well. What can you tell me about these guys' performance?
I mean, man, they have been the backbone of the offense so far. I think, again, when we talk about the Buffalo Sabres, so far this season has just been all about consistency.
Yeah.
You have some players having really big games, and then they're a non-factor in the next one. But between Skinner and JJ, like I say it all the time.
Even Middlestad in there.
Even Middlestad, you can throw Lucy in there too.
He's been very
watching from home, like anytime JJ Peterka hits that ice, he's like a streak of blue.
He's fun to watch.
Man. He is seriously the fastest guy on the ice.
Yeah.
And has no problem skating around guys and making big plays happen. That's why he had that what was it at that point? That was eight game point streak.
Yeah, 8-game point streak. The only thing that shut that down was the
game against Pittsburgh.
Game, of course, and that's including the game we only got 1 goal against the Flyers. He assisted on that goal, so he still kept his point streak when the offense was at its absolute lowest at the time.
This guy, he's
impressive to think about for a guy who's still less than 25 years old.
Sure.
Young German prospect, still eligible for the World Juniors, and this
Mm-hmm.
kid's out here balling like this.
I mean, he's been a steady performer for the Sabres. And that, when you kind of take a look at the stats against Minnesota, maybe the Sabres did not deserve to win this game. We have Minnesota outshooting Buffalo by 10, and the Sabres actually register a 27% face-off win rate. How did we sneak out of this game outside of Devin Levi having a phenomenal game? What do you attribute this win to?
I think they had a stronger second and third period. I think once again, though, they get beat heavily in that first period, and they look like they're flat out there. But the Sabres all year have shown that they can finish, which is something I feel like they didn't do last year.
Right.
It's just getting out of that first period. You can't every game or every other game feel like you're allowing a goal in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't play catch up with a young team who hasn't, they've experienced it, but they haven't experienced winning because of it. And great teams aren't going to do that down the stretch.
Yeah.
You have to get out hot. But I just think, this is the Levi game. I don't really think you could contribute much else to it.
Yeah.
That second line's been great. Peterka's been great. Middlestad down the stretch, on the second or third line's been great. And I kind of think that's what's keeping the Sabres afloat.
Certainly one of his best games as a pro. We have a .934 save percentage for Devin Levi. One of the main reasons the Sabres escape with a win there. Also, the 2 Minnesota Wild goals coming on the PK, which is kind of uncharacteristic for the Sabres, who they've been very good at this year.
Yeah, I mean, between Greenway and Tager, they have been fantastic on PK. However, I mean, kind of flowing more into this Penguins game, like our power play has just been awful. Yeah. Again, we're 0 for 4 against Minnesota.
0 for 4 against Minnesota and 0 for 2 against Pittsburgh.
0 for 6 on the weekend.
Totally,
absolutely terrible. We're actually 29th in the league. The only 3 teams lower than us. St. Louis having one of the worst power play units of all time.
Yeah.
Right now.
That's
historical.
They have 1 gool on 32 attempts.
That's a crazy stat.
That's terrible.
There's your stat for the day from Tommy Bailey. Obviously,
it's terrible. Man.
The power play has been an issue. Probably plays a big reason as to why they couldn't get on the board against Pittsburgh. Tommy, what can the Sabres do to fix this power play?
I think you got to switch it up here a little bit. Obviously, the lines aren't working too well. Olsen just kind of floating around out there. He got plenty of chances in that Minnesota game. 4 power plays. He had 4 different shot attempts. Only 1 hit the net.
Yeah.
Very rough situation to be in. And the 1 shot registered in at only 73 miles per hour. And I say only because look at Thompson blasting a 100 mile per hour, getting robbed, things like that. 73 miles per hour is not enough anymore. And it's situations like that.
The league is evolving. And folks, before we do continue this Pittsburgh talk, we do have a question coming from the audience. Let's see what we've got. From Pika Power 146, who do you believe needs to perform more in this upcoming game against the Boston Bruins?
You want me to start?
You shoot it.
Man. If I had to go with one guy that I think really needs to step up, I think it's got to be a little bit of Dylan Cousins or Dalsey. One of the two, I think, has to show up in this game big time. You look at Boston's power play, Boston's team in general right now, they're one of the best teams consistently in the league this season so far. And I feel like the big thing here is going to be that defense. And, of course, the leader on that defense is Dahlin. You know, we pay him so much money.
Yeah.
I feel like with that new contract, this is where you prove it. This is where you show us that you are the guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to be a game that the guys rally around a leader like Dalsey, and it's going to come down to how he performs.
Colton, what do you think?
I'd like to see Owen Power really kind of step up. I mean, he hasn't looked horrible this year, but he's had a couple bad defensive games.
Yeah.
And obviously, like Dahlin as your aggressive playmaker from the defensive standpoint.
Sure.
You can't have 2 guys who are loose on the defensive end that you have locked up for the long time. I'd like to see more solidification on the defensive end and kind of just making smart plays while, of course, having that offensive upside.
Where's your head for the Bruins game?
I'll say, funny enough, for OP, you know, Tommy and I are stat fishing, and we're like, okay, that one bad game against the Flyers, he was on ice for all the
major negative,
he was still leading the team in plus minus.
He still does currently.
So, exactly, which is crazy. So I agree with you. I think he definitely needs to stand up or step up rather. I think other members of the defense need to as well. Offensively, it has felt like the biggest point of the season so far is that we have a really high-powered offense that's just not producing much. So I guess even though he's been having a really quietly good season, I'd say middle stat I think would be a really good person to kind of step up and get that power again, get JJ back to producing, and again, forget about this Penguins game, just move on from that. And again, just the big 3. You know, I know Tucky's kind of been out with some injury.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you also have, again, Tajer and Skinner were the big 3 last year.
So a quick note, the power play lines this morning, Skinner was the rat in front of the net.
Okay.
Peterka, Krebs, Olofsson, and then Power. That's the first, or not Power, sorry, Dahlin. And, it's Skinner, Thompson, Cousins, Middlestat, and Dahlin. And then the second power play is Oposo, Peterka, Krebs, Olofsson, and Power.
What do you think about that?
I like the move of putting Olsen on line number 2.
Yeah,
I agree.
I feel like right now that power play needs to get its legs going. They need to find something. In that sense, I feel like that's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it was obviously a rough game against Pittsburgh. We get outshot 39-35. UPL has a terrible game, and that ends in a 4-0 loss. One thing I wanted to mention before we hop to the other segments that we have involving the Sabres, Matthew Savoy gets called up, and there's not much there, right? He plays 355, not even a full shift for this kid, the young guy coming up to the Sabres. No stats recorded, no shots, no points, and he's immediately sent back down to the juniors, the WHL. What do you guys think about that?
What was that, Wenatchee? How do you pronounce the junior team that he went to?
I
don't know. He goes back down.
Man.
Exactly. He goes down to the
played
WHL.
for Saskatchewan for a while, things like that. But right now, Winnipeg is where he resides.
Yeah.
But the thing is Don Granato said that he would love to keep him on the team, you know. But the thing is he's been dealing with a little bit of an injury, and it's been a little bit of a lingering issue due back to training camp. And when things like that happen, it stunts the growth, things like that. And so right now the rule is that he either has to be on the main team roster of the 23 guys or he has to be in the WHL. And right now he's not on the 23-man roster because of things like that. There's a lot of guys that are also young, developing. You got a lot of different things. Like, I don't know if Patrick Kane's a big thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Whatever with Patrick Kane. The situation with like other players coming back from injury, Jack Quinn in December will be back. Things like that are important to note because when you have to keep him on the roster for all season long, it can get really gruesome when it comes down to things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, even next season, again, there's been a lot of talk about giving up Olofsson, and then you also have Okposo, Gergensons on their 1-year contract.
Yep.
That frees up a lot of space, and I think that's when you bring Savoy back.
What do you think this does to his confidence, Colton?
I don't think it really affects his confidence. I don't think like the timeline for him to step in this early, especially with how many prospects they currently have. And I think it would only be worse down the stretch to play him with a lingering injury.
Yeah.
If that's the case, and kind of have that performance dip so low, because this is like the solidification of your foundation of your career. So if you're coming in ice cold on an injury, you're probably not going to do.
Yeah, and obviously there has been a lot of holes, a lot of moving around for the Sabres, a lot of moving parts, maybe as to reason why they haven't found their groove offensively. And there's a couple of guys that we can really talk about that really have been underperforming. And mainly it's a few veterans, right? So there's a couple of guys I want to talk about. Kyle Okposo, the veteran, the captain of the team. He's been, I don't even know if he deserves ice time at this point. It's because he's the captain. He's getting ice time.
He's playing his 1,000th game tonight.
He's playing his 1,000th game tonight.
Tomorrow night,
And I think it's in the goat heads, which will maybe be interesting to watch there. Just a lot of bad overall from Kyle Okposo, bad puck skills, poor defense. He's on the fourth line, so you can't really expect much. But
yeah, exactly. I think between Oki and Gussie, Okposo and Gergensons, I think it's definitely been a lot of like the chances are there, but just not working. The amount of breakaways. I mean, we were just talking about them. We were looking through the film, like the amount of breakaways and one on X chances that Gergensons has had.
He's had so many.
Hasn't put him home.
Scored. Yeah, so I think on paper they are 100% underperforming.
Yeah,
and again, like you said, Okposo for sure is getting. And I mean Gergensons because he has that A. Is they're getting their ice time because they're leaders.
Yeah. Right.
They're in the locker room. They have the veterancy. So I think that they're now Olofsson. On the other hand, this is not the first time I think that we brought his name up. Especially, I know talking from experience, right from last season, people wanted him gone halfway through the season.
To kind of piggyback off what you're saying there, Gergenson's getting a ton of chances, things like that. But if you look at Olofsson's case, there's a reason why this kid was a 7th round pick.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a power play specialist and like nothing more. Pure goal scorer, no assist, no playmaking ability. And there's a reason why he's a 7th round pick because of that. Mm-hmm. And when you factor things like that into a team like we don't have that kind of chemistry on the power play right now. We don't have that kind of team. And the thing is, it just doesn't seem like he's fitting in too well with all that. And then when you get back to Okposo's not the guy who lights up the stat sheet. He's kind of that 4th line grinder player. Right. If you look at the team he played for the longest time, the Islanders. What do? They love to grind out games, win 3-2, 2-1. They go super slow with it. They get a lead early. They just dump the puck in, give chase. He's a physical, forechecking 4th liner. And when you get into things like that, he's not going to light up the stat sheet.
Yeah, and just a lot of ineffectiveness from Olofsson on the 5v5. Obviously, Okposo, and Gergensons. Holy. Too excited about the Bills game. I mean, how long can the Sabres stay complacent with this kind of production from the 4th line?
I think it's tough, and I think they're trying to make changes, and I think it's actually hurting the 3rd line. The 3rd line is Jost, Okposo, and Gergensons. That's an ugly 3rd line. I think the 4th line was like Rusick, Krebs, and Olofsson. And like those 2 bottom lines are, in my opinion, are a bad combo. Right. Like I don't want this to turn into. I understand you want your 1st line scoring, which I didn't think Greenway, Thompson, and whoever it was a bad combo, but now you're kind of building yourself into the Sabres a couple of years ago that could only score on the first 2 lines. They had no help in those bottom.
And then it just puts stress on your other lines, and I don't know how long they can make that move, but it doesn't look pretty from those guys. We have a quick injury roundup before we hop into some Bills talk. Dylan Cousins sporting that face mask from the fight that he had against Philadelphia. Looked like a nose injury, and he kept going off the ice, getting cleaned up a little bit. That's rough. Matthias Samuelsson returns against Pittsburgh. He was listed with that upper body injury for a little bit.
He was actually supposed to come back for the Minnesota Wild game.
Yeah.
A little bit of a stinger kind of deal, though, with the warm-ups. Didn't make it there.
And there's no panic there. You get the win anyways at home. You got a few other things. Tuck still out, missing today's practice with that upper body injury designation. That's something to monitor. Obviously, the Sabres cannot really replicate his production and what he means to the team. And then we have Peyton Krebs out due to a family matter. So
Zach Benson back from practice.
And Zach Benson also back at practice.
That's huge news.
So the Sabres getting some guys back. Obviously, you can't speculate too much about the Peyton Krebs injury, hoping everything is okay there. But the Sabres will head in tomorrow night they'll host the Boston Bruins in the Goat Heads. You know what that means.
Well,
Yeah.
we originally know what it means, but you got to think here a little bit because, that
It's
Flyers
Boston.
game, it's a chance, man.
Yeah.
All right.
We do play better statistically in the Goat Heads and on the road.
Mhm.
It's
All
an
things
impressive
favor Buffalo.
It's an impressive record. The Sabres sit at 7-7-1, 7th in the Atlantic Division currently. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk Bills, Broncos, and Deshaun is going to join us. Thank you very much.
How was school today?
It was good.
Did you play volleyball?
Yes.
And how's your serve coming along?
Not so good.
I think we should work on it this weekend.
Amy's birthday bash slumber party is this weekend.
Is your homework done?
No.
That was the deal we made.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Insider. We now have Deshaun Francois joining us to talk Buffalo Bills football. We have Monday Night Football. I guess you could say somewhat of an exciting showdown against the Denver Broncos, right?
Yeah.
And you like to think that,
I was like, let's take a second. These primetime games have just been really.
yeah.
we had
Panthers,
Bears.
and then Jets, Raiders. What the hell is this?
I mean,
a national game even.
A lot of it's injuries. A lot of injuries kind of ruin these matchups. But I mean, come on, let's get something better in there. But honestly, we have an 8:15 start time for Bills Broncos tonight. What do you guys expect from tonight's matchup?
Ooh, so I think I'm like, again, we come in every week, and I think I say this every single time. I'm like, it's the Bills' revenge game. You know what I mean? Like this is
The get right game.
The get right game, the
Because
rebound
it's
game.
true to itself, though. Like they have a bad game, they need to get right. So they have to get right after every game because they have not been right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's been, this has started since, like, I felt like the Jags game.
Yeah, the
After exactly, the London game was always okay. Get right game is right after this, and then they just have not looked the same. So it's hard to kind of predict going into the Broncos game because again, the Broncos have been very unpredictable this season. Again, getting 70 dropped on them and then holding Patrick Mahomes to 0 touchdowns. It's like just crazy. So I'm really not sure what to
So to
expect.
speak on that a little bit, it's like the Bills, we are undefeated at home if you don't count the loss in London as a home game. So that's one thing that you can look into that. But Broncos are coming out of beating Patrick Mahomes and they're coming off their bye week.
Yeah.
So they've probably been in their stadium
Well rested,
getting their head ready. They're like, okay, we just did this to Patrick Mahomes. Now we got to get Josh Allen set because he's not that much different. And we just held Patrick to 0.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm seeing this game right now. We're coming in undefeated at home, but the other team is definitely going to be fighting up a hill battle.
Now I want to direct this conversation towards Thomas Bailey. He has a few interesting stats for the Bills Broncos. What can you tell us about this matchup?
Okay, so there's a couple different things. Bills are 23-16-1 all time against the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
2 crazy stats that I have for you all today. September 9th, 2007 was the last time the Denver Broncos beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. And it was on a Jason Elam 46-yard game-winning field goal to debunk the Bills week 1. I was 2 years old.
Wow.
One day after my birthday, I was 2 years old in one day.
You're making a lot of viewers feel old now.
It's a lot crazier than people think. And then the other one that's crazy here, Monday Night Football. The Broncos haven't won on the road on Monday Night Football since 2012 when they did it against the San Diego Chargers at the time.
San Diego's crazy.
Yeah, it was 24-0 at halftime. They rally back, win 35-24.
Yeah.
But that's 11 years for that. 16 against us at home.
It really makes you put that into perspective. It's been a while since the Broncos have had success on Monday night. What do you expect from this matchup?
Is it safe to say I have no idea what to expect?
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely.
That is the safest
I
thing
could,
to say.
I could assume and I can think, but I don't know what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
I expect to see more tempo. I expect to see the Bills try to control, the pace of play and make, the Broncos. The Broncos had a great game plan last week, and they shut down, or 2 weeks ago, and they shut down Mahomes in a 24-9 win. But Russell Wilson didn't throw for all that. He threw for 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But it was like 190 yards.
Okay, but if you look
114
back at
yards.
When's the last time that you've seen Russell Wilson throw 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, right.
He's actually, well, I wanted to point that out. Russell Wilson playing a lot better than last season under Sean Payton. He has a 16 to 4 touchdown interception ratio. And if you have a competent team, that'll get it done, right? But we don't know with Russell Wilson. We don't know what to expect. He's kind of a mixed bag. And as mentioned before, the Broncos are kind of a shaky team in the wind, especially. So it'll be interesting to see how the weather holds up as well. And the other thing that I want to shift my focus to is, can Sean McDermott prove that he can outcoach Sean Payton tonight?
I think he can.
Yeah.
He can definitely prove a case because they have Lenny that's going to be available to play tonight. So now there's a chance for him to throw in a little bit of a mix that Payton hasn't seen from them all year. So he definitely has the chance to outcoach him tonight.
For reference there, Leonard Fournette active on Twitter today saying that his time is coming soon. # Bills Mafia. Does that mean tonight? Does that mean next week? I don't know, but it's something to keep an eye on. And Bills fans are excited to watch playoff Lenny play some football in Buffalo here. So there's a lot of factors in tonight. Do you guys have confidence in McDermott?
I do. I still do. Again, it's I don't want to sound corny by saying trust the process, but I do. Again, this is kind of a spot we haven't been in for a few years now.
A while.
So it's been a
the
while.
last time we had this many losses.
Exactly. I think Colton said interestingly in pre-show. Again, I think if we end up making a wild card spot, right, not just focusing on this game, but we make up a wild card spot. We haven't been in a wild card in a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, then we might have a different path to the big game. You know, it might be a little bit different.
What you meant is that we haven't been in a wild card where we didn't win the division in a little bit.
Oh, well,
We're playing the bottom seed. We're going to probably end up playing a 50-50 matchup.
Yeah, the last time, that was 2019. They lost 22-19 to Houston in overtime. So not exactly the greatest track record there.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So it's an interesting matchup. I really don't know what to expect. Like I said, you hate to call it a get right game because we've been calling the last 4 games get right game.
Doesn't mean they're going to get right.
Exactly. They have the opportunity to. They could have done it against the Giants, and although they walk away with the win, that was not a get right game. That was maybe a get wrong game for the Bills.
Right.
Let me shift it a little bit here then. Sorry to cut you off. It's like instead of saying like what we expect, I think we should go like a bold prediction, like what we think is going to happen. And I think that the offense is going to go strong with Gabe Davis being someone that's a focal point on the offense tonight because it's really just been Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs.
Yes.
Gabe Davis has been catching the ball. He's 5th in touchdowns with 5. So it's like, he's not that far off from where we want to see Gabe Davis, but tonight has to be the game where we see Gabe Davis being the Gabe Davis we want.
Can I throw Khalil Shakir in the mix too?
Yeah,
I mean, hey man, like
hell of a game
hell of a game. Yeah, I think again, we've seen Gabe Davis at his best and his worst. I think they scheme him tonight again using Shakir and Davis in similar ways, but again, just more passes Shakir because he's not fantastic.
Let's reserve that thought for a little bit from now. First, before we get into some bold predictions or score predictions, whatever you want to call it, I want to hop into the keys to the game for the Bills to win tonight. What do you guys have as far as what the Bills need to do to walk out with a win in Orchard Park tonight?
I honestly think that we need to get the lead early.
Agreed.
Yeah.
A big issue has been not scoring in the opening half, and when you don't do that, you tend to have when you're trailing. You know, obviously our defense is pretty banged up right now. You're probably going to be trailing if you only get 7 points in the opening half. So with things like that coming into fruition for this, you got to have an offense that isn't one-dimensional because if you are up by a lot of points, you can run or throw the ball. Versus if you're down fourth quarter by 14, you're not running the ball anymore. We already know that.
Yeah,
it takes away that element of just all-around game plan.
To the same tune, you want to mention that obviously the last game the Bills threw 38 times to 8 rushing attempts from their running backs. It's not a balanced game plan right now. What do you got? What do you think is the key tonight?
No, I 100% agree. Keep Josh Allen on the field as long as you can. I say it every single week. He's a rhythm quarterback. So as long as he's on the field and he's controlling the game, then we'll be fine. And again, with a really banged up defense, that's your best bet is keep your defense off. Let them do their job when they need to. But if our defense, like I said, last game was getting like really consistent stops is when we really needed it too. But the Bills weren't producing anything offensive. Exactly. Turnovers we have been missing for a long time too. That's another key to the game that we can reserve for somebody else.
Than it seems.
I agree.
I have a question for you. Is it that you want the Bills to slow down their drives and just get multiple first downs, or do you want them to speed up the tempo and score fast? Like, which one is it that you want?
See, now you're sounding like the Bills staff right now, because that was a lot of the hate on social media was why aren't they going up tempo? Personally, they look better up tempo, way better up tempo.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Again, they had said, I think it was McDermott that had said that they were working with up tempo and then they ditched it to look for other offensive schemes.
Right, and it is important to notice that the Bills that up tempo difference it's big, and you mentioned that controlling the tempo was going to be important for you tonight. How do they do that?
Yeah, I think they just have to have a mentality where they are aggressive.
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessarily just up tempo. Like I don't want to see an up tempo to see James Cook running back draw on 1st and 10. Like I want to see them take
shotgun draw,
like actual thought out shots, not Josh locking in on one player.
Yeah, it's been a lot of that recently.
Yeah, so I want to see them take shots. I want to see them open up the field.
Yeah,
and spread the field with Gabe Davis, and that's making me throw up as a Stephon Diggs fantasy owner. I mean, 51 points out of him to win tonight.
Oh my God.
But I just think it's aggressive. I think it's aggressive in play calling and play style.
Aggressiveness.
Because defensively, I mean, the Broncos last week on offense, they or 2 weeks ago, they beat Kansas City by however many scores, but 20 or 25% of their dropbacks ended in a sack.
Yeah.
So they're liable to mistakes, and if you can get to Russell Wilson, that's right there with
aggressiveness seems to be the common theme. Deshaun, what do you think for tonight?
So we just got to let Josh be Josh, and I think you could speak to that as well when we say that Josh Allen hasn't been able to get out of the pocket and control his mobility like he normally has been able to. Like, I feel the offensive line needs to give Josh the ability to think and do all the time, all the thinking that he normally does in the backfield before he ends up running the ball or making that pass where it could lead to an incomplete or interception. So letting Josh be Josh tonight and him being comfortable is what we got.
And the Broncos got some guys on defense, obviously, headlined by Patrick Surtain. They've got Baron Browning coming off the edge. He's been a very effective player. Justin Simmons always in the back there.
Josie Jewell,
the middle linebacker, who's been very impressive in pass coverage. To kind of sum this all up, I told you guys to table your thoughts for bold predictions. Let's come back to why do you think Gabe Davis can potentially receive more targets than Stephon Diggs tonight?
So looking out, like you said, we have Pat Surtain, and I also feel like the Broncos defense is something that is going downwards. They haven't really been on the come up by getting rid of their players. They're sending, I forgot who it was. That was their last player that they got rid of. But
Bradley Chubb went to Dolphins.
Yeah, that's what it was. Bradley Chubb. He going to the Dolphins, that definitely took a lot of pressure that they used to have both Randy Gregory leaving and going to another team. That's who it was. I remember.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember the name though. But I definitely feel that Stephon Diggs is going to be shadowed by Pat Surtain the entire game, and that's what's going to leave it open for Gabriel Davis to make his mark.
Colton, your bold prediction tonight?
Von Miller, in his first time playing against the Denver Broncos, comes away with 2 sacks.
I like that.
That's why I was going to say that for mine too. So
there's been a lot of clamoring for Von Miller to show up, getting paid a lot of money.
I think this is his game. I think the bad offensive line got
and we need it. We need that out of Von Miller right now. The pass rush has been kind of non-existent the past couple weeks, though we do have some healthy, talented pass rushers. What's your hot take tonight?
Well, honestly, I was going to talk about Von. I'll switch it over to Ed. Same thing. I was going to do probably over 1.5 sacks again. Maybe
Oliver.
Yeah, I think Ed has been really, again, he's been so close to taking that step, and he has been so disruptive in the front, too, in the absence of Daquan.
I think just to kind of sum up, like someone on that defense has to step up.
Exactly.
Because you're down stars, and it's got to be someone. It has to be someone from that front.
And maybe the absence of Daquan Jones, we mentioned that's a big time, but they do bring in Linval Joseph. Maybe he can bring in some open one-on-one opportunities for Ed Oliver to help him pass the rusher. Tommy, what's your hot take tonight?
It's very similar to Deshaun's, but it's not a specific player. I think we get just anybody else involved. If you look at Josie Jewell, one of the best cover linebackers in the league, probably going to shut down Kincaid most of the night. I think you look at Patrick Surtain, he's probably going to be shutting down Diggs. I think you find a way to win with guys like Davis, Shakir. I think we find that extra element of just other people getting involved and just fully all the way around get everyone else into the conversation.
And not to mention Kincaid too. Just again,
Oh, yeah.
he had a really, really great game against the Bengals, and I'd like to see more.
He's been electric during the second half of the season. Hopefully, he can keep that up. I mean, this guy's he's on
That
pace
fumble was
to.
not on him either, man.
He's on pace to already set
You're
the.
upside down and the ball gets
No,
punched out. You
That
can't.
fumble-
That's not on him, man.
No,
That's not on him.
At the end of the day, it's him versus the defensive player, and he lost.
Yeah, he was the last of the Bills'
I'm not
issues
mad.
against.
I'm not mad about it, but that's on him.
Yeah, I mean, you got to own up to it, and he did. He's a rookie. He has to learn from that experience.
Mhm.
But, I mean, he's been electric. He's on pace to destroy a lot of Bills rookie tight end records at this point, and we're just about halfway through the season, or a little bit past halfway the season. But that'll wrap up for today. We have a lot to pay attention to tonight because the Bills need to prove that they can back on track.
Final score
It's a
prediction
must-win.
before we go?
I don't even want to give a final score.
Yeah,
You guys
gotta
got
do more.
more.
I think every week that we
Every time that we put out the final score prediction, they do the exact opposite.
Well, I just want to say mine because thinking out because you said you want to see Vaughn with 2 sacks and KJ wants to see Ed Oliver with about 2.5 sacks.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a very defensive game, which means that the Broncos shouldn't be scoring at all. So why not just say 30-0 Bills?
30-0 Bills. There you have it. No less. I will.
You said we do the exact opposite. 70-20 Broncos.
There you go. Hopefully that's what happens. A lot of Bills fans looking for the Bills to get right against the Broncos tonight.
Bedford are out tonight.
Yeah, we're missing a lot of important pieces tonight. We're gonna,
Bernard's questionable still.
yeah, we're gonna need the depth to
It's
step up.
interesting.
There's a lot of depth
See.
pieces that are going to need to step up for the Bills. The offense is going to have to stay on pack. But that's all that we have for today. We will check back in with you Wednesday after this. We'll have more on the Sabres as well. Thank you so much for watching Buffalo Sports Insider. I am Justin Cejak, KJ Zelzinski, Thomas Bailey, Colton Pankwitz, and Sean Francois. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your night.
Go Bills!
35-16 Bills.